Hello, everybody, and welcome to Everything I Read in April. So, without any further ado, let's start with the first thing that I read in April, and it is actually a continuation of a series I started in March, and that is I'm sure I will drop these books at some point because they're super slippery, but this is the continuation of the Witch Hat Atelier manga series that I started reading in March. So just so that I don't drop these all over the floor, I'm just gonna pick one and I will just hold it up so that you know what I'm talking about. But in March, I read the first two volumes of Witch Hat Atelier, and I was just like blown away by the quality of the writing and of how gorgeous the illustrations were and how cleverly the panels were just like placed on the page and stuff like that. So I just knew that this is a series I had to continue reading because I was super curious to see what's going to happen with these characters. Also, in April, there was the premiere of the anime Witch Hat Atelier. So they transformed the manga into an animated series on Crunchyroll, and I've been tuning in every Monday since the middle of April to just see the amazing world of Witch Hat Atelier. If you are not familiar with this manga, we are basically following Coco, who at the beginning of the story is just this ordinary girl who is mesmerized and just like enthralled by the magic that exists in her world. In this world, witches are just kind of like separated from normal human beings, and obviously, witches are the only ones who can perform magic. But humans are kind of like experiencing the benefits of magic. They have certain enchanted objects and enchanted places that they can use to their benefit as well. But normal human beings cannot use magic. You have to be born a witch in this world. Coco, when she was a kid, I mean, she's still kind of a kid, but I think she's supposed to be like 12 or 13 when this story starts. So when she was probably 5 or 6, when she was very little, she was actually gifted a book of spells, but she didn't actually understand how to use it because, again, everyone believes that witches are born and you cannot just simply become a witch. Until one day, when a very mysterious witch, who is actually on the cover of this third volume, his name is Skifrey, he makes an appearance at her mom's shop, at Coco's mother's shop. Coco's mom is just like a tailor, seamstress kind of a thing. Anyway, Kifri makes an appearance there, and some things happen. Coco discovers that actually witches are not born with their magical abilities, but they are kind of like learning how to draw some spells on pieces of paper, and that's how magic spells are performed. So in reality, it's just like drawing on a piece of paper with some magical ink, and everyone can perform magic. So, because of this, Coco starts actually drawing some of those spells that she has in that book of spells. And unfortunately, she draws a spell. Obviously, she doesn't know what this spell will do or what's going to happen, but she draws a spell that pretty much transforms her house and her mother into stone. It turns everything into stone, and Kifri is there to save Coco, but unfortunately, they couldn't save Coco's mother, who is actually turned to stone. And now Coco has to go on this journey to become an apprentice so that she will be able to break this spell. I was actually thinking of showing you some of the panels that I absolutely adore from this third volume, but I think it's just safer to not do that because it would obviously like contain some spoilers for the manga series, but also for the animated version of Witch Hat Atelier. Speaking of the animated version of Witch Hat Atelier, I am so impressed. When I read this series, I actually like could not picture how they're going to animate this story because the panels are just like so complex and they're done in such a unique way that I just couldn't really visualize how that's going to look animated. But the animation studio did an amazing job, and when you're watching the anime, if you also have the books or if you're like reading them online or stuff like that, and you're actually looking at the panels from the manga, At the same time as the anime, you actually see the exact panels in the animation. It is so well done, and I'm eagerly waiting for Monday to watch a new episode of this anime. So yeah, these are kind of like my all over the place thoughts about Witch Hat Atelier, obviously without spoiling anything. I just love this series, and I hope that this video will convince you to read it or maybe to watch the anime, whichever way you choose. They are just so well done, and I'm so impressed with the story, with the characters, with the drawings and the animation, with just like everything. Would highly, highly recommend. The next thing that I read in April, I actually don't know why this is happening on Goodreads because I did sort my read books with the date red filter, but they're just kind of like all over the place. So I'm trying to see which one is the next one. Okay, the next one is actually a reread. The book is new. I just purchased it like a couple of months ago, but I read this one before. This is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I somehow ordered the pocket version, and this is just like as big as my hands, which Hat Atelier pretty much put me in like a reading slump because it was so good that I didn't really feel like reading anything afterwards. And so, because I remembered that I read this book when I was a kid and I really, really enjoyed it at that time, I just thought it was so full of adventure and whimsy, and it was cozy, but it also had stakes. And I thought that this is going to be the perfect book to kind of like slowly take me out of this reading slump. So, I reread The Hobbit, and I am sorry to say that it just didn't really feel as magical and as whimsical as it felt when I read it as a kid. But one good thing is that this actually took me out of my reading slump. So after finishing The Hobbit, I felt like I had this like hunger to read other books as well, and it did what it needed to do. So yeah, this is The Hobbit. Obviously, I will not bore you with what this book or what this story is about because I'm sure pretty much everyone knows what The Hobbit is. So that's that. And then because The Hobbit put me kind of like back on track with my excitement to read another book, I read a new release from an author that I absolutely love, and that is Meg Schaefer. Her new book is called The Book Witch. And if you watched the channel previously, you know that I absolutely love The Lost Story by the same author. So when I saw this new release by Meg Schaefer, I knew I had to read it. This is just so. I don't even know how to describe this book. It is partially taking place in our world, but it's also full of just like whimsy and magical realism and this underlayer of like fantasy, but not really. If you read any other Meg Schaefer book in the past, you know that she really likes to include these kind of like meta-ish scenes into the stories, and without spoiling anything too much. The Book Witch. I absolutely love this book. It was not what I thought it would be, but in the same time, it was exactly what I thought it would be. I just, as I said, I don't know how to describe this one. But in essence, this book follows our main character whose name couldn't remember for the life of me, obviously. So the main character is named Rainy March. She comes from this family of book witches. And what book witches are essentially doing, they are protecting the stories, they are protecting the books, right? So in the world of the book witches, there are these burners, meaning that the burners are actually going into the books and are trying to destroy certain stories from within. And when burners are just like destroying the story from within, every single copy of that book that exists in the real world is just disappearing all of a sudden. No one remembers that story, no one remembers reading it or what happens in it. It's like it never existed. And what the book witches are doing is to protect the books from the burners. And I would just leave it at that because saying a little bit too much about this book is not beneficial. I feel like you definitely have to go in blind into this book because you will be absolutely surprised by everything that happens. Sure, it's not believable and it's very flowery and whimsical and dumb at times, but it was just everything I needed in April. So I highly, highly enjoyed reading the book Witch. At some point, I do have to read Meg Schaefer's I think it's called The Wishing Game. I didn't read that book until now, but judging by the Lost Story and the book, which I'm sure I will enjoy that one as well. So yeah, this was the Book Witch by Meg Schaefer. Would highly recommend. And then after the Book Witch, I read a memoir that I've been meaning to read for the past probably like 2 years. So I listened to I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Obviously, this is narrated by Jeanette herself, so I just preferred to listen to the audiobook because I feel like it just brings this nuance to the book itself. And I just had a great time, but I'm also just so heartbroken by everything that Jeanette McCurdy had to go through, when she was a kid and in her teenage years, and even more so because I was like a huge fan of iCarly, knowing now what she went through when she was actually filming that show and what the relationship was with her mom and with her family overall. It just was a lot to process. I am so glad I finally took my time to listen to this book and to just sit with this information for a little bit because even though it contains just like some heartbreaking details about Jeanette McCurdy and about her past, it also gives you this sense of hope and wonder because it just tends to show that wherever we are in our life and whatever we might feel, if we're willing to ask for help, if we're willing to, work on ourselves, we can improve. It's not going to erase the trauma that we went through, but we can improve and we can kind of like live our life or try to live our life at the fullest with that process of actually not letting that trauma and that stage of our life impact our future. I have chills just like when I'm thinking about this book and would highly recommend the audio version. Jeanette McCurdy did an amazing job of just like narrating and kind of like transporting the listener to those moments in time. And yeah, I loved it, even though I didn't rate it on Goodreads because I just feel kind of iffy rating someone's life. In essence, I just really, really loved this book. It's sad, it's heartbreaking, but as I said, it's also full of hope. And if you didn't read it or like if you didn't listen to it until now, I'm glad my mom died by Jeanette McCurdy. Because Jeanette McCurdy recently came out with her debut novel, I'm Glad My Mom Died, as I said, was a memoir. So she wrote an actual literary fiction novel, and it is called Half His Age. And after finishing I'm Glad My Mom Died, my kind of like audiobook app recommended me this audiobook as well, Half His Age. So I decided to continue with Jeanette McCurdy and listen to this one as well. So in Half His Age, we are following this high school girl. Her name is Waldo. And she just develops this crush on her writing professor. She's just like daydreaming, basically. But what happens is that her fantasies are actually coming to life, and she actually has or like starts having sexual relationships with this teacher who is married, who is her teacher, who's arguably an adult who should know better. And it just kind of takes this turn of like both of their lives being destroyed in the process. Shocking, I know. This was well written, but I would say that I've read this kind of story in the past, and I just don't think it's that new or interesting or exciting. I like it as a concept, but I just wished we went a little bit deeper with the character development. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed parts of it, but also in the same time, if someone would ask me, would you recommend this book? I don't know if I do. I think there are, as I said, other books that were doing this concept better, like some time ago, and I just wouldn't really spend my time with this book. If you never read this kind of story in the past, maybe give it a go. If you enjoy Jeanette McCurdy's writing style, again, maybe give it a go. It was fine. I'm glad I read it, but as I said, I don't know if I would recommend it necessarily. So that is that. And then after reading these two Jeanette McCurdy books, I read Rouge by Mona Awad. Loved Bonnie, loved I Love You Bonnie, which is the sequel to Bonnie. Rouge, it's so absurd and so stupid that I loved every second of it. I don't even know how to describe this book. I feel like this is kind of like a general theme of the books that I read in April. It's books that I can't really describe because they're so bonkers. But Rouge by Mona Awad is basically following this girlie whose name is Mirabelle, but pretty much everyone calls her Belle. She prefers Mira, I think, but everyone calls her Belle. Belle has this very weird relationship with her mom. We kind of get the idea that something happened between the mother and the daughter a long time ago, but we don't really know what that was, and we also don't really know where they are in their relationship in the present timeline. And at the beginning of the book, Belle's mom dies, and she has to obviously go to her mom's house to prepare the funeral and everything. And she discovers that her mom has a huge debt. She doesn't know how she will pay that debt because Belle doesn't really have any money. She's working, I think, as a sales advisor or something back in Canada, and her mom moved to the United States to pursue her acting career that didn't really go anywhere. And as Belle is going to the United States to prepare her mom's funeral, she uncovers more and more just like weird things that were happening with her mom. She believes that her mom might have struggled with some mental health issues before she died. She seemed like she doesn't really remember anything. And it's just like really, really strange. After her mom's funeral, Belle discovers this just weird mansion very, very close to where her mom used to live. And she goes into this strange house, and there she discovers this really weird spa wellness kind of service thing. And I don't know where the sun went because it just went really, really dark all of a sudden. But Belle is actually offered like a free treatment at this spa. She is absolutely obsessed with everything skincare related. Obviously, this story is just like this, if you will, on like the impossible beauty standards, especially for women, that are like imposed by the society, but also by patriarchy, if you will. And Belle, once she gets this treatment, she just starts behaving really, really strange. She starts forgetting things from her past. We don't really know what happens until we kind of sort of do. This book is so weird and I loved every second of it. I think Mona Awad just like has this sense of like writing really, really weird books that in a vacuum shouldn't work because they're so absurd, but somehow they do. And I just think I will read everything that this author writes because I love her books so much. If you didn't like Bunny, if you didn't like the sequel to Bunny, I don't know if you would necessarily like Rouge. But if you did like those books, I think you would really enjoy Rouge. The thing that I said about the book, which also applies to this book, meaning I don't really know in which genre to put it because overall it just feels like it veers on literary fiction with just like a teeny tiny tinge of horror. But it also can be like literary fiction with magical realism. I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those books that's kind of like bending the genre rules and norms, and it just exists in a place of its own. And I think that's so fascinating about Mona Awad books, like in general. But yeah, this was Rouge. It's weird. It's awkward. It's sometimes absurd, but as I said, I personally really, really liked it, and I cannot wait to read another Mona Awad book. And yeah, this is everything I read in April. Not a lot. I feel like I just struggled going through books because of the reading slump that I was in, but in May, I'll see how I feel about reading and how I feel about finishing certain books and stuff like that. Speaking of finishing books, I actually wanted to show you what I am currently actively reading. I started this book probably like a week ago and I didn't touch it, but I really want to get back into it because it really just like pulled me in. I just didn't really have the time to concentrate on reading this one necessarily. This is Mieko Kawakami's newest release. This is Sisters in Yellow. I actually wanted to buy like the regular hardcover version, and then when I went to pay at the bookstore, they actually got me this signed like special edition from the back, asking me if I want this one instead. And this one was cheaper, and as I said, it was also signed, so it just felt like a no-brainer to get this one. This is the signed page as well. So I will just read you the blurb because, as I said, I didn't really make a huge progress with this one. I read probably the first like 20 pages or so, and it just really pulled me in. It sounds like an interesting concept, and I do want to finish this one this month in May. So it says Hana has nothing, but she's hopeful. She's 15 years old. She lives in a tiny apartment in a suburb of Tokyo with her younger mother, a hostess at a local dive bar. They have no money, no security. Then Kikimo appears. Kikimo, or not Kikimo, Kimiko, sorry about that. Kimiko is older, a bright light in Hannah's dark world. Together they set up Lemon, a bar that, despite its shabby setting and city clientele, becomes a heaven for Hannah. Suddenly, Hannah has a job she loves, friends to share her days with, and the glittering promise of money. She feels like a normal girl. She feels invincible. Soon, all of Hannah's hope, her optimism, and her drive will be tested to the limit. A story of enduring friendship and deep betrayal, Sisters in Yellow is a masterpiece of teenage dreams and adult cruelties that confirms Mieko Kawakami as one of the great writers of her generation. Yeah, I'm interested to see where these characters will end up and what's going to be revealed about Hannah's past. So, Sisters in Yellow, hopefully, I will get through this one this month. And then this is actually the book that I kind of like concentrated all my attention on at the end of April and also the beginning of May. And that's why I didn't make like a huge progress with Sisters in Yellow. But I am actually rereading Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. This has like a really bright cover, so I don't know if it's going to be visible on camera. But I am rereading The Dark Artifices in preparation, obviously, for the Wicked Powers that is going to be released sometime in the fall of this year. And because The Wicked Powers seems to be very, very connected with the Dark Artifices. I mean, it's going to be connected with all of the Shadowhunters spin offs because that series is going to be the last one in the Shadowhunter Chronicles. So it just makes sense that it's going to be related to all of the spin offs and stuff like that. I don't know why. This series is actually my second to last favorite series from the Shadowhunters Chronicles. My least favorite is the Mortal Instruments, and then this is a close second to that. I don't know why I just never really related to the Mortal Instruments. I know it's what started it all, and I feel like I just read that series at such a young age that I just don't really care for it nowadays. But then last year or 2 years ago, I don't remember exactly, I read all of the other Shadowhunters spin offs. I read Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, Clockwork Princess. I also read the Chain of Gold, Chain of Iron, and Chain of Thorns series. I always get the names mixed up, so that's why I'm just like remembering the titles of the books. And then I also read Lady Midnight, Shadow something, Lord of Shadows, and Queen of Air and Darkness. And because I didn't actually remember that much from the Dark Artifices series, I wanted to do a reread, as I said, in preparation for the Wicked Powers. I don't know what's happening. I actually really liked this first book in the Dark Artifices series this time around. Christina is the MVP of this first book. I know she's going to have like more page time in the other two books from the Dark Artifices, but Christina is just like so precious and I love her to death. Also, Mark, if you know, you know, but Mark and Christina, my favorite two characters from the first book. The first time around, I vividly remember that I didn't really get Jules's kind of like perspective, or like I didn't really connect with his characters at all. And this time around, Julian just really spoke to me like a really weird way. Like, I don't know what's happening with me, but I absolutely adored this story so much more than I did the first time around when I read it. I am very excited for Lord of Shadows just because I know what's gonna happen, and I feel like I will enjoy that one as well, like so much more than I enjoyed it the first time around. Um, is this becoming my new favorite Shadowhunters series? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see until I reread the other two books. But yeah, I'm pretty much like almost done with this one. I still have like a chapter and the epilogue, which is like very, very short, probably like 20 more pages or so. This is how much I have left in the book. I do believe I will finish it today as of when I'm filming this video. But yeah, Lady Midnight was a very nice surprise. And with that, this is pretty much everything I had for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe if you want to. If not, then that's perfectly fine. Happy reading, and I will most probably see you next month with a new reading wrap up. Bye, everyone. Okay, and now let's do a thumbnail.